going to talk about sort of navigating, NERSC consists of a bunch of different, nodes and storage options and all these different things. So, what is all of this stuff? Where can you get resources you need? And how do you actually connect to the system? So, we're going to talk a little bit about account setup. Most of you probably have an account. Um, Actually, do you want to raise your hands or something and let me know? Do you have an account set up? How many of you actually have a NERSC account? And you can tell me in the room how many people kind of. How's the room looking?
About more than half, 2/3. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. So some of you may be in the process, so I'll mention a couple things about that. We're going to talk about Iris. If you have a NERSC account and you've used it, you've probably visited Iris, but if not, then I'll talk about that and why you're going to need that. And then we're going to talk about actually how to connect to Perlmutter using something called SSH. I'm gonna mention Jupyter because it's a fantastic way, excuse me, to connect to Perlmutter. And then I'm also going to talk a little bit about a service called ThinLink. Um, Debbie did talk a little bit about user tickets. I'm going to show you where you actually submit one of those user tickets, and then I'll quickly go through we have two main websites for NERSC, which is our documentation and our homepage, and I'm just going to quickly orient you to those as well. Okay, so so one thing to know and understand is there's two different kind of types of accounts at NERSC. So you have a personal account that sort of is just tied to you. So I have an account, and that's something I've had for the entire time I've worked at NERSC and before. And so this is my login. I have to authenticate, and I am given authorization to use resources. Um, Usually a PI, so someone who has a project at NERSC, I'm going to talk about what that is. They may send you a link, or you'll be given something that helps you actually go and sign up for your account. And then the next sort of account, and we don't really call it an account, we call it a project, is basically the amount of time that your group, your collaboration, you individually are given to use our system. So most people are on multiple projects. So for example, if you have a training account, or sorry, not a training. If you have a NERSC account, but you got it for the purpose of a training, you were probably in a training project, which means that we have a little bit of time that we use just for those of you who are not quite in a regular PI project yet, but have authorization to come to one of these trainings and learn how to use the system, and so you'll be added to a training project. That project is sort of how you pay for your time at NERSC. So it's kind of like a bank account. The DOE Office of Science gives each project a certain amount of time that they can use on our computer system. And then anytime you run, you basically charge to that account or you charge to that project. And so that's kind of how we keep track of, who's doing what and how much they've done and so forth. Everyone has to be in at least one project. So you can pick which is your default project. So if you are attending a training, but you also have a regular project that you've been added to, you could, excuse me, you can pick the training account to be your default for right now, and then when you start doing your regular computing, you can switch it back to your regular project. Before you start using the system, so if you've gotten your account and you have used the system, you have agreed to our user account policies. This is kind of uh, this is called the acceptable use policy. You can find it on this web page here, and that kind of lists like what is it that you're allowed to do and I think it's mostly like what you're not allowed to do. And just we don't do classified research. We don't do, there's certain types of research that we don't we don't allow. And so you can find a full list of that here. So again, if you're getting time on the system, your PI or whatever project you're on has been approved because they're not participating in any of these types of activities. But we just want to make sure that each individual is aware that they should not be doing any of these things either. So you can read the full text of that on this webpage here, which probably looks quite different now because we have a different website and I forgot to update these screenshots. But the I think the link should still work, and if it doesn't, we'll get those updated. Um, you also must agree to a code of conduct. So because NERSC has a huge user environment, and we really encourage collaboration, engagement, interaction between our users because you all are experts in your own right. You may be learning about our system and may be able to help someone else. You know, for those of you in the room, you might lean over and help your colleague next to you. But it's important to us that everybody is doing that in an appropriate way, in a respectful way. So NERSC is actually one of the first, if not the first, center, HPC center, at least in the DOE or in the Department of Energy, um, to have a code of conduct where we just emphasize, you know, how are we going to treat each other in this environment where we're all working together, or even if we're not working together, but we're working towards the same goals, we're just going to be respectful and we're going to be professional. And so you can, again, read the full text on the website. And this is also kind of built into the process of setting up your account. So you'll naturally be shown some kind of screen that asks you to read this and accept in order to move forward. Um, okay, so what a really important thing, I mean, as with most accounts, any type of account, is you have a password and it's meant to protect not only your, you know, intellectual property that you're working on at NERSC, but of course the system as well. And the first line of defense is to have a good password. So it's very important that you do not share your password with anybody. You should not be emailing passwords. You should not be sharing passwords. You know, if you lose, you forget your password, there's a way to reset it. NERSC admin do not have access to your password. I can't go look it up for you, but there is a way I can send you a link that will help you reset it. Um, in general, it's important that you pick a good password. You know, if you need example, there's plenty of examples online of how to pick a good password that's not, you know, password 123, you know, NERSC password or, you know, anything like that that's very obvious. It can be a series of numbers and letters. We don't actually prescribe that it needs to be a certain length or have certain characters or anything. We leave that to you. But we do ask that it be a secure password. So in general, a good practice is having like random words, you know, several of them, maybe at least 4 or 5 random words. Again, emphasis on random, something like that. Because the other thing is that you need to be able to remember it too. I personally cannot remember random letters and numbers and symbols. But maybe some kind of a phrase, essentially, I could probably remember because I'm going to need to type it in when I go to log in. Um, your account will can be locked after failing to log in multiple times, and you can reach out to us for help in terms of resetting your password or if you have any other kind of issues logging in. Another really, really important thing that is required of all users is to have multi-factor authentication. So this is where, okay, so you go to log in and you put in your password and then it sends you some kind of verification code. If you've seen this on certain websites where you have to put in your email address or your phone number. In the case of uh, or I'll describe that in a moment. Just to really, this slide is meant to really make it clear why we insist on having multi-factor authentication. These systems are highly sought after in terms of they have, you know, incredible compute capabilities. So people want access to them, and particularly bad actors may want access for free computing to do whatever kind of nefarious thing they want to do, or mining Bitcoin or something. Um, and so and this has happened, right? This is a news article from a couple 2020, where a system in Europe was hacked. And so just literally just adding this multi-factor authentication adds a level of security that protects us from a lot of this kind of attack. Um, okay, so I'm going to continue talking about MFA, but since you use Iris to set it up, let me talk about Iris first, and then we'll talk about multi-factor authentication more. So, what is Iris? Iris is kind of like a lab notebook for NERSC resources. So, it's something that we NERSC have set up. The person who developed it is a staff member, and we use it for several different things. So it manages your password and your multi-factor authentication. So you'll do that setup in Iris. Um, it keeps track of your compute hours, your storage, what projects you're on. And you can even go in there and check like your job history, how many hours you were charged, and so forth. Usually I go through a live demo, but I'm going to scoot through because I want us to be able to get through some of this content. What I recommend though is going to actually here, let me quickly go and show you kind of what it looks like. So this is what it'll look like when you get to Iris. I am going to use federated ID. I'm going to click my institution, which is NERSC. I have my username password saved, but then I have to get my MFA, which I have on my phone. So I'm going to type that in.
Maybe can you make it bigger, please?
Yes. Okay, let me zoom in here.
Thank you.
So this is what you'll see at the top of your Iris page. You'll see a bunch of different tabs. These are different tabs up here, your name. So you can go in here and see different projects you're on. You can click on a project to find out, okay, we have this much time left. This is how much we've used and so forth. So this is what I mean by that kind of lab notebook, like the counting that takes place. If I was logging in for the first time, I would need to go to this MFA tab and follow the instructions here to add a token to my phone, because then I can use my phone to get that what's called a one-time password, which is we sometimes call it OTP, one-time password, which is six numbers that change every 30 seconds. So we recommend using an app called Google Authenticator. It's extremely easy to use on your phone. You download the app. Of course, it's free. And then you'll get a QR code from Iris from this button right here, where you'll tell it kind of what you've it basically it'll generate a QR code, which then your Google Authenticator app can take a snapshot of and get set up with that OTP. Um, so that's the main thing I want to show you is if you haven't done this yet, the setup is very simple here in Iris. And we also have like a step-by-step picture guide on our documentation, which we can share a link to as well. So this is the kind of, and if I haven't run any jobs in a long time, but if I had run jobs, I would go to this jobs tab and I would see all of my jobs and what I ran and so forth. So this is also another good place you can go and see, okay, what have I done? So that's the kind of like the lab notebook recording type of function that Iris fulfills. Okay, so I know I'm zipping through, but I also want to get to the good stuff, which is actually connecting to the system. So, how many of you have seen this movie? It's called The Martian. It has Matt Damon in it. It's a fantastic movie. I really enjoy this movie. He gets sent to Mars. Well, he's an astronaut and he goes to Mars and then he gets stuck there. Have any of you seen this movie? Okay, some people have seen this movie. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. It's a really fun movie. This movie is written by an engineer who actually worked at NASA, and so it's actually very realistic book. The book is very realistic. A lot of the things that he describes that Matt Damon's character actually does in order to survive are things that you could actually do and make sense. The person who wrote it is a scientist, and he did a great job. But then that didn't necessarily translate into the movie. And in particular, there's one scene where there is a scientist or a mathematician. He's trying to do some calculations to help get Matt Damon home, right? We got to bring Matt Damon home from Mars. And he's doing the math and he goes into a server room and connects his laptop to a server rack with some random cable. And this really upsets me because this movie and everything in it is extremely accurate. And then there's this, which is like the most inaccurate thing in the whole world. In order to use a compute system like an HPC facility, like what we have, you do not and will not go into the server room and sit there with a random cable attached to the system. If you tried to do that, you would probably be asked to leave. I also just really love that he has this thing that tells him his calculations are correct, which is like, how is he doing? How is he verifying that? Like, because Matt Damon hasn't come home yet. So, anyway, sorry, this is me just being nitpicky. For the record, I absolutely love this movie. So I just really want to emphasize this is not how you connect to an HPC facility. And if you ever go to a movie and there's someone sitting in a big server room with their laptop, please tell everybody you know that is incorrect. So this is what not to do. What do you do? You will need a internet connection, you will need a laptop or computer with something called a terminal, and you will need your username, password, and multi-factor authentication method. That's all you need. A lot of people who work and use NERSC are remote. You do not need to be physically in the room to use Perlmutter. Um, oops, okay. So now let me make sure that the sound is working. Okay, we are going to watch this fantastic video which walks you step by step through the process of logging in. And it's interesting because logging in seems like something that should be kind of simple, but it can be a hurdle if you've never done something like this before. And we have this wonderful video from Lisa who's going to show us exactly how to do this.
Welcome to NERSC. In this video, you will learn how to log into NERSC systems. NERSC is a scientific computing center at Berkeley Lab, the national lab with the best views, as you can see. NERSC is located on the beautiful hills here in Berkeley, and our current system is called Permuter. My name is Lisa, I'm a performance engineer at NERSC, and I will guide you through the process of logging into Permuter with the SSH command. To get started, we need to open the terminal. If you are unfamiliar with using a terminal, you can learn more through the HPC Carpentries workshop that's linked in the video description below. Also, make sure you know your NERSC username and your password and have your MFA or multi-factor authenticator app set up. If you don't have any of those available, check out our documentation at docs.nersc.gov/getting started. All right, I think we are ready. I open my terminal and type SSH, and then my NERSC username is Elvis. So I type Elvis at permuter.nersc.gov. If this is too long for you, you can replace Permuter with Sol. Fun fact, Permuter is named in honor of Sol Permuter, an astrophysicist at Berkeley Lab. He insisted on giving users the option of using Sol instead of Permuter to log in, since Sol is quicker to type than Permuter. Now hit the Enter key, and if this is your first time signing on to Permuter, you will be asked to add an RSA fingerprint. Please type yes and press the Enter key. The fingerprint will be added, and in future you will not be asked again. Now you will be asked for your password and your OTP. OTP stands for one-time password. The OTP is obtained from the multi-factor authenticator app. It will be a 6-digit number that changes every 30 seconds. If your password is, for example, ABCDEF and the OTP is 919595, type in ABCDEF 919595 and press the Enter key. Yay, congrats, you made it. You're now logged into Permuter. To be precise, you are in a Permuter login mode. If you encounter any issues logging in, check out our documentation on troubleshooting or submit a ticket to the NERSC help desk. If you have comments or requests for additional videos, contact us at nersc-user-videos@lbl.gov.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lisa. All right. I hope everyone was able to hear that correctly. Okay. Wonderful. So yeah, so I'm not going to belabor this too much, but again, the point is the way to connect is over the internet. You're going to use a terminal. If you have a Mac, there's a built-in terminal or there's some other terminal options. For Windows, you might need a tool called Putty. There's also something called MOBA Xterm. There's a couple different ones. Linux, you probably have, again, a built-in one. You can get whatever you want. And apparently Chromebooks also have a way to do this, which is interesting. So there should be several different options in terms of getting one of these text terminal programs, which is a way to SSH. Another way to get on the system is through something called Jupyter. We're going to actually go through in detail, well, pretty detailed tomorrow, or sorry, Friday. I'm going to do like a live walkthrough of Jupyter. Um, but this is actually a way to use a web browser to access NERSC, and there is a terminal that runs in this web browser, which is equivalent to the terminal that you could just pull up on your computer to do the SSH process. So in this, you wouldn't need to do the SSH because you're already on the NERSC system. So the terminal would essentially just open up on whichever you're probably on a login node or something, but you might be on a compute node. It's already running there, so you don't have to do anything in addition to that. But we're going to go through that on Friday. Um, One more thing, there are instances where you're running a GUI-based application on Perlmutter. So this might be something like MATLAB. There's Nsight, which is a performance tool for NVIDIA GPUs, DDT, which is a debugging tool. And GUI apps in general are very, very slow when running over a network. So if you're running a GUI application remotely, and I've done this, it can be so painfully slow that it's basically not worth running. But we have a lot of MATLAB users. We have people who need to use Nsight because they're doing performance optimization on our system. So there has to be a way to run these. And so we have a solution. So there's something called forwarding clients, and they basically accelerate this X protocol, this thing that allows you to see your GUI on your screen on your personal computer while it's running on the like a client or basically running on our system, right? Um, One thing to remember is that the internal network within NERSC, so that the internet that connects NERSC to itself, like all the other nodes, is extremely fast. And I mean, what was it like? It's several gigabits, right? I have gigabit internet, but on a good day, it's still only like, zero point 0.7 or so 0.8 gigabits, right? So it's still that the internet on the outside of NERSC, so out my internet, your internet, is very slow relative to what's happening on the inside. And this is that bottleneck, right? Imagine taking a huge amount of data and then squishing it and trying to get it through a really small hole, right? So that's the bottleneck. So we have these forwarding clients which now run the application and the GUI inside of and the server inside of NERSC, and then just forward the information to you. It's a smaller amount of information that needs significantly less, bandwidth, and therefore is much faster to run. And so these clients, there's several different clients. We now use one called ThinLink. So ThinLink is very simple to set up, and there is actually a nice video that just basically see someone setting it up. You just see their screen, and they'll show you kind of what to click. You'll go to this ThinLink webpage on our NERSC documentation. Again, we've mentioned our NERSC documentation a lot. It's going to be probably your favorite web page or website by the end of this summer. But everything you could ever want is on that website. You just follow these instructions exactly. It tells you exactly what to install, what to click, what to do, and then you can go forth if you're running MATLAB or so forth. You can run it using ThinLink. So you can see here the instructions aren't super duper long, and before long you will be ready to go. Okay. Any quick questions before I keep going? Okay. Was there a question? Sorry. No. Okay. So we did talk a little bit about submitting a user ticket. The place you're going to do that is a place called help.ners.gov. And Okay, help.nurse.gov, and you're gonna click on this open ticket button right here in the middle. It's a kind of a red, it looks like a ticket, like a movie theater ticket. And basically what a ticket is a way for us to know, okay, someone has an issue, they've submitted this kind of little statement of what the issue is, and we have this internal system that allows us to keep track of the fact that we need to answer this ticket and get you some help. There's also something that says open requests here. And this may make a little bit more sense once we talk maybe more about like what quotas are and the different file systems. But there are situations where you need to request a little bit more space, like storage space, or you need to request a reservation, which is sort of asking for a special compute time where you will have access to a part of the machine and no one else will. And this is, we handle these on a case-by-case basis if we think that there's a good reason why you need that. But those requests are also handled here in open requests. So you'll click on that button, you'll see a big list of requests. Some of these may or may not be useful to you. Don't worry about it. You'll find the one that you need. So most likely it'll be storage quota request or a compute reservation request, and then you'll just fill out the form. You just fill out exactly what information it's asking for. Um, Reminder that, a ticket is going to get solved potentially, as fast as it can, given the information that you start us off with, right? So, if you just post an error message without any context of what you did, where is this error message from? And sometimes people do is they cut off the part, they'll send us a screenshot of part of the error message. And, sometimes the funny thing with error messages is the error message you see and think is the most important part is actually not. There's some other error earlier on, which is what caused all the rest of the errors. So in general, if you can give us the entire error message, you can give us a job ID, maybe you can tell us, how this error came about. That is going to be the best way for us to help you the fastest. And in general, screenshots are really unhelpful because sometimes the resolution is really bad. And again, I can't copy and paste, so now I'm trying to like type in exactly what you have. So screenshots are not helpful. Feel free to just copy and paste text into the ticket. There's no problem if a ticket is super long. And then just again, be explicit. Tell us exactly what's happening. So don't do this. Don't say Perlmutter's broken, my job won't start, my code is slow. You know, you can include that and something more, right? And tell us kind of, give us more information. So over here you can see like, hey, this is what I was trying to do, this is what I'm running, this is the error message, so forth. So just giving us more information because what's going to happen is we're just going to ask you for that information and then you're going to wait another period of time and then it's just adding another step. Okay, we've mentioned the documentation quite a bit, so it's really important that you see it. So here is what the documentation looks like. I think this screenshot is a little old. Things have been updated, the colors are a little bit different, but in general, docs.ners.gov is going to be where you're going to find all of our documentation, and you're going to see this navigation bar on the side. This should help you get started, like, okay, I need to run a job, so I'm going to click on running jobs, or I need to use a certain application, you're going to click on this. I need to manage my data, click on this, right? So we're trying to make it as accessible as possible. There is a search bar if you know exactly what you're looking for. So example, you come here and you're like, oh, I really need to set up ThinLink. And this is what I did today when I was looking for that screenshot. I just typed in ThinLink right here in the search bar and it pulled up the exact page I needed. So this documentation page is excellent and it will be your best friend. Lots of how-to guides. So, if a lot of you might be doing some kind of, machine learning or something, you're using Python, you want to set up your content environment. I'm always here using the content environment, like how-to guide and just copying and pasting things so that I don't even have to really think about it. I just get set up and then I'm able to go do what I need to do. So definitely taking advantage of just the wealth of knowledge in this documentation website. We also have this thing called a JavaScript generator. This is meant to be an interactive tool that you can use to say, okay, I know I need to submit a CPU job. And again, if you don't know what a job script is, by the way, which some of you may not, if you took our fundamentals course, you hopefully are familiar with this. But if not, that's okay. We're going to talk about jobs and what a job script is more on Friday, or is that today? I don't remember the schedule. Um, but this can help you set one up. So if you're new to setting up a job script and you want a little help, this job script generator can be really, really useful. It's not actually submitting anything, so it's just purely kind of like a text tool, so you can play around with it. You can, just type in whatever you want, use it as a tool to learn. There's no like submit button. It's nothing's happening on the back end. It's not launching a job. So don't worry about like, oh, I'm gonna like burn time using this or anything. That's not the case. It's just a way for you to see, okay, if I want my script, if I need a script that does XYZ, this is kind of what it would look like. And again, you can find it here in running jobs, but if you go to the web page and type in JavaScript generator, you'll pull up this page exactly. And then we have the homepage. Actually, really, I don't think this has been updated. So this is what our old one looks like. So I'm not going to, I want to just pull up nurse.gov real fast. So it's a wonderful page that now has been updated to look really, really nice. And one thing that is the most important thing in the whole world is this center status portion. So here it's nice, you just scroll down. There's also a button at the top that says center status, and it'll bring you to just a web page that's solely dedicated to this. So center status means, what is actually happening at in the building right now. And currently we have a scheduled maintenance. So this, again, the reason that this center status page is super important, please bookmark this. Please check it the first thing you do in the morning or whatever. Um, because we sometimes get people submitting tickets being like, oh, my job went wrong, it ran yesterday. And it's just because we're down for maintenance. We send out emails in advance. If you get these weekly emails, you'll see we say, hey, we have a scheduled maintenance from this time to this time. Perlmutter is going to be down. If you check that, you'll be like, oh, okay, it's not just that something has gone wrong, it's not supposed to be working. Um, when Perlmutter is working, this will change to a green check mark and it'll say up. So please check this first. The other thing is if there is an unexpected maintenance, something has gone wrong and we're working on it, we will also put that information here. So again, if you're running and you know that there wasn't supposed to be a maintenance, but things go wrong, something happened, we have to fix it. That information is up here very quickly. I mean, the people, because again, we have people 24/7 who are running the machine or, monitoring the system. So the second something goes wrong that might actually affect users, it's pretty much up here immediately. And it'll say, we're investigating, something has gone wrong. These things are kind of affected. And then, you can submit a ticket if you want to say, hey, this is what I saw, because maybe we can use that information to diagnose the issue. Um, Probably not. We have a lot of different diagnostics, but that way okay, we are aware something has gone wrong, okay? And there's a lot of other information here. The file systems, everything is up and working, different services. Again, we have tons of different services. Everything is working. And then the best thing is this planned outages. And my tip is please, please, please put these in your calendar if you rely on, if you're like, I need to use Perlmutter every day from 9 to 5 to get my work done from now until, the end of summer. And there's going to be days, once a month where we do maintenance. You need to know when that is so you can plan around it. When I was in graduate school, somehow it would always turn out that the day I would sit down to finally get through my data or do whatever I was doing, this at that time the system was Corey, and Corey would be down for maintenance, and I'd be like, what the heck? And so finally I started putting it in my calendar so I knew, okay, Corey's going to be down this day, so I'm going to plan to write this paper that I've been meaning to write, find something else to do because the system is down for a scheduled maintenance. So if you are a calendar person, please put this in your calendar. And then you can also see if anything else went wrong in the last couple, and you can see all kinds of different information here. So in general, this NERSC webpage is more about, news, things that are going on. You'll find events here. We list all of our different events, there's calendars. So this is more meant to be like general information. It's like more of like just higher level stuff. It's not, you're not going to find technical documentation here. You're going to find that in the docs. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, that should be everything. So are there any questions right at this moment? Okay.